In the summer of 1396, the world was at war. Kingdoms burned, empires clashed, and across the Balkans, two mighty hosts marched toward each other, fueled by faith, glory, and vengeance. From the castles of Europe rode 20,000 armored knights, their banners blazing beneath the sun. Across the river waited 40,000 Ottoman warriors, swift cavalry, silent Janissaries, and archers whose arrows cut through steel. When the horns of war cried out, the earth trembled. Lances splintered, arrows darkened the sky, and the plains turned into a storm of blood and fire. Faith turned to fury, courage to chaos. By nightfall, tens of thousands were gone. Glory had turned to ash, and from the ruins of that day, a new power rose, one that would forever change the fate of the world. By the late 14th century, Europe trembled beneath a shadow rising from the east. Across the Bosporus, a new empire had risen, the Ottoman Empire, born in the rugged hills of Anatolia, the land we now call Turkey. What began as a small frontier state had become a storm, swallowing kingdoms one by one. A decade earlier, on the field of Kosovo, the Great Plain in today's Republic of Kosovo, the Serbian army was crushed, the Balkans burned, Bulgaria surrendered, and Ottoman banners fluttered along the Danube River. That silver border dividing east and west for Christian Europe, it was not just the fear of conquest, it was the fear that faith itself might fall. In the royal city of Buda, capital of medieval Hungary, now part of Budapest, King Sigismund watched the horizon darken. If the Ottomans crossed the Danube, Hungary would be next, and beyond it lay the heart of Europe. Across the west, in France, in the Duchy of Burgundy, and in the Habsburg lands near Vienna. Now Austria. The call for a holy war spread like fire. Church bells rang. Priests spoke of duty and salvation. In noble halls from Paris to the German states, men saw a chance to fight for both faith and glory in Rome. Pope Boniface IX, head of the Catholic Church, blessed a new crusade. He urged Europe's rulers to unite under the banner of the Holy Cross, to drive back the armies of Islam. They believed this would be the last and greatest crusade of their age, a war for God and for honor. Answering Sigismund's call came knights from across Europe, French and Burgundian nobles under John of Nevers, German and Polish lords, English adventurers, and the fierce knights of the Teutonic Order. They rode in shining plate armor, their lances raised, banners blazing with the Red Cross. Their hearts burned with pride, certain that courage and faith alone would bring victory. But across the river on the plains near Nicopolis, a fortress city in what is now northern Bulgaria, another power was ready. Sultan Bayezid I, called Yildirim, the Thunderbolt, commanded an army of 30 to 40,000. Elite Janissaries, swift Spahi cavalry, deadly archers, and loyal Serbian vassals who knew every road and hill. Opposing them stood 16 to 20,000 crusaders, brave, armored, but divided. They had steel but no unity. Each banner fought for its own glory, and no one truly understood the Ottoman art of war: deception, ambush, and speed. The difference between the two sides was clear in their weapons. Western knights wielded long swords, lances, and warhammers built for brute force. Their armor gleamed under the sun. Their war horses thundered like iron beasts. The Ottomans answered with composite bows that pierced steel, curved Kylij sabers, and light lamellar armor made for fast, open-field combat. One side believed in unstoppable strength. The other trusted in movement, patience, and precision. Between them flowed the Danube, wide and silent, a line drawn by fate on one shore, the silver crosses of Europe, on the other, the golden crescents of the East. As summer 1396 burned across the Balkans, tension filled the air. Campfires flickered under red skies. Men whispered prayers and sharpened blades. The armies had not yet moved, but destiny already had. The storm was coming, and soon the fields of Nicopolis would burn. The summer of 1396 brought a fever across Europe. From France to Hungary, blacksmiths worked without rest, shaping blades that would soon taste blood. In the royal city of Buda, capital of the medieval Hungarian kingdom, now part of Budapest, streets thundered with iron hooves and marching men. A crusade was being born. The courtyards of Buda shone like mirrors. Knights from France, Burgundy, Poland, and Germany gathered beneath fluttering banners. Their armor blazed in the sun. Their war horses stomped and snorted, restless for glory. Drums echoed through the city. Priests raised the cross above the crowd. The air itself trembled with faith and pride, the promise that the West would rise again against the Crescent. Within days, the forges roared louder than church bells. German crossbows, Polish pikes, Hungarian sabers, all crafted for the war to come. Every hammer strike rang like an oath. In taverns and camps, soldiers boasted of triumphs yet to be won. They believed themselves invincible, heirs of the old Crusades. But beneath the gold and hymns, cracks were already forming. Each noble held his own banner, his own pride, his own army. There was no single voice, only ambition wearing the mask of faith. Beyond the southern border, the Ottoman Empire moved with the precision of a machine. In the plains near Adrianople, the old capital, now Edirne, Turkey, camps rose in silence. There were no feasts, no songs, no speeches. Only the steady rhythm of drums, the clatter of bows, the sharpening of blades. Sultan Bayezid I, the thunderbolt, prepared without noise or arrogance. He needed no promises from heaven. His confidence was in his men, the Janissaries, raised from childhood to obey without question, and the Spahi cavalry, masters of speed and terrain. They did not pray for victory, they trained for it. While the Crusaders feasted, the Ottomans calculated. While one army drowned in pride, the other waited like a storm behind the hills. Scouts crossed the forests of Wallachia and Bulgaria, tracking every movement, every banner, every campfire. By the time the Crusaders finished their celebrations, Bayezid already knew their numbers, their leaders, and their weaknesses. As July turned to August, the Danube shimmered beneath a burning sky. In Buda, the army assembled, a tide of steel, banners, and fire. The bells rang again, calling men to destiny. From every church rose a single cry, Deus vult! God wills it. Tens of thousands answered. The streets shook as the host began to move south. Armor gleamed like sunlight on water. Trumpets blared across the valley behind them. Dust rose into the red sky, marking the road to glory or ruin. Far beyond the horizon, hidden among the hills of Bulgaria, the thunderbolt of the east waited in silence. His army stood ready, bows strung, sabers drawn, banners still. The wind carried only the sound of horses breathing and the low rumble of drums. For the west, the march had just begun. For the east, the trap was already set. The Crusader army moved south like a storm of steel. From Buda, they crossed the wooded hills of Wallachia and descended into the burning plains of Bulgaria. Their banners of red, blue, and gold stretched across the horizon. Drums thundered, hooves struck the dry ground, and dust rose like smoke. Villages lay silent and empty, their people fleeing, unsure whether these armored men brought salvation or destruction. For days, there was no sign of the enemy, only distant smoke and the eerie silence of abandoned fields. But the deeper they marched, the stranger the land became. Bridges were burned, wells poisoned. Supply wagons vanished. The Ottomans were nowhere to be seen, and everywhere at once. At night, faint lights flickered on the distant hills, then vanished like ghosts before dawn. Ottoman scouts shadowed them from afar, silent as smoke. They counted the torches, marked every trail, every mistake. But the Crusaders saw nothing. They believed the enemy was retreating before their might, not realizing they were being lured, step by step, into a trap. Then one morning the trap was sprung. The vanguard entered a narrow valley choked with reeds. Without warning, the air split with a sound like tearing silk. Arrows, thousands, rained down from the trees. Horses screamed. Men fell. Shields splintered. And from the fog burst the Spahi cavalry, curved Keeley sabers, flashing like fire. They struck fast, slicing through the flanks, then vanished into the mist. Trumpets blared. The French and Hungarian knights rallied, lowering their lances. The countercharge exploded like thunder. The ground shook as hundreds of armored horses crashed forward. Steel clashed, banners ripped, men and beasts tumbled into the mud. For a moment, the Crusaders drove the Ottomans back. But when the dust cleared, the enemy was gone, leaving only bodies and silence. They pressed on beneath a merciless sun. Armor burned against their skin. Water ran out, lips cracked. Men collapsed where they stood. Horses dropped in their tracks. Every mile was ruin. Bridges gone, wells poisoned, wagons left in ashes. At night, the faint glow of torches danced on faraway ridges, but no one knew whether they were real or an illusion. The Ottomans were watching, waiting, tightening the noose, and the Crusaders, blinded by pride, still believed they marched toward glory. After weeks of suffering, the city finally appeared. Nicopolis, its stone walls crowned with the crescent. Shouts of triumph filled the plain. Drums rolled, horns blared, siege engines creaked into position. From the walls, Ottoman archers answered with a hail of arrows that screamed through the air. The real battle had begun. The French knights, hungry for honor, refused to wait for orders. They spurred their horses forward, sunlight flashing on polished armor. Arrows fell among them, but they did not slow. They smashed into the first Ottoman line. Light infantry, who broke and fled almost instantly, cheers rose across the Crusader ranks. Victory seemed certain, but it was an illusion. Behind the fleeing soldiers waited the true army, ranks of Janissaries, silent, motionless, bows drawn. When the knights pursued, the ground betrayed them. Horses plunged into hidden pits and spikes. Formations shattered. Confusion spread like wildfire. Then the sky darkened. A cloud of arrows descended, clattering on steel like rain on stone. Men fell screaming, crushed beneath their own mounts. Those who stood were cut down by the curved sabers that flashed through the dust. The battlefield became a furnace, and Janissaries advanced in perfect rhythm, shields locked, unbroken. From both flanks, the Spahi cavalry swept in wide arcs, closing the trap. The proud banners of Burgundy, France, and Poland fell into the mud. Steel flashed red. Smoke and blood filled the air. The earth trembled beneath the weight of war. As night fell, the field still burned. The Crusaders withdrew to their camp, dragging the wounded, faces streaked with ash and blood, armor dented and blackened. From afar, the sound of Ottoman drums echoed, slow, steady, victorious. Across the plain, the crescent banners glowed in the firelight. The Janissaries held their ground, not chasing. They knew dawn would bring the final blow. In the Crusader camp, knights sat in silence around dying fires, hands still gripping their swords, eyes fixed on the burning walls of Nicopolis. No songs, no prayers, only the low hum of exhaustion and despair. That night, Nicopolis did not sleep. Two armies, one broken, one waiting, faced each other through the darkness. The wind thick with smoke and the stench of blood. And when the first light of dawn touched the horizon, a horn sounded, deep, long, unending. And in that instant, Nicopolis erupted once more in the thunder of war. The battlefield of Nicopolis roared again at dawn. The air was thick with smoke and ash. All night the fires had burned, and when the sun rose, it lit not victory, but carnage. The plain was a sea of broken steel, shattered banners, and the groans of dying men. As the fog lifted, the Janissaries advanced, shields locked, their lines straight as a blade. Drums thundered in rhythm, echoing off the river. Their front ranks knelt and loosed a storm of arrows. Behind them, the second line stepped forward, loosing again before the first had even reloaded. It was a wall of death, precise, mechanical, unyielding. The remaining crusaders rallied desperately. Hungarian infantry planted pikes to the ground, forming a forest of steel to block the coming charge. Behind them, the French and Burgundian knights mounted what was left of their cavalry. Mud clung to their hooves, smoke stung their eyes, but still, they lowered their lances and roared as one. The ground shook as they surged forward. The collision was thunder. The Spahi cavalry swept down from both flanks like twin storms. Their horses moved as one, armor glinting black under the rising sun, sabers drawn. They smashed into the crusader sides, slicing through pike formations before the infantry could even turn. The plain erupted in chaos, arrows cut the sky, spears snapped, bodies crashed together in waves of blood and iron. At the center, the Janissaries and French knights met head-on. The knights drove forward, swords flashing, banners snapping in the wind. Their armored horses crushed the first Ottoman ranks beneath their hooves. But the Janissaries did not break. They pivoted, forming a semicircle around the knights, closing the trap. Then came the counterstrike. From behind their shield wall, rows of soldiers thrust long spears into the gaps of the heavy armor, while archers behind them rained death into the melee. Men screamed as the front ranks were swallowed whole. The Spahi reappeared like ghosts, wheeling behind the crusader lines, cutting off escape caught between pikes and sabers. The western host disintegrated. Their charge, once a wave of thunder, now broke apart into fragments. Each swallowed by the relentless tide, horses collapsed. Banners fell. Blood splattered the mud until it shone like glass. Still, pockets of resistance fought on. Polish knights formed a ring around their standard. Defending it as if it were the last light of the West arrows turned their shields into pincushions. Fire bombs from Ottoman engineers exploded in arcs of flame. When the smoke cleared, nothing remained but blackened armor and silence. The Janissaries advanced again, line after line, unbroken, unstoppable. They pressed forward until the plain was nothing but bodies. The Danube gleamed in the distance, glimmering red beneath the sun, the only witness to the fall of Europe's pride. By midday, the Crusader army ceased to exist. Their formations dissolved, their commanders slain. Only a handful managed to reach the river, throwing themselves into the water as Ottoman arrows followed. The Danube swallowed them whole, knights, horses, banners, dreams. And above it all, the crescent standards of the Ottoman Empire rose through the smoke. The battlefield trembled beneath the roar of victory. The thunderbolt of the East had struck with all its fury, and in a single day, the might of the West was broken. When the Battle of Nicopolis ended, the plain was covered with the dead. Tens of thousands of crusaders had been destroyed. Only a few hundred managed to escape. The rest were either captured or killed. The fields were silent except for the cries of the wounded and the sound of crows circling above King Sigismund of Hungary fled down the Danube River on a small fishing boat. He was one of the few leaders who survived. He had seen his great crusade, the largest army Europe had sent in centuries, completely destroyed in a single day. When he reached the safety of the Black Sea, he sent word back to Europe. We lost not to strength, but to our own pride. Back on the battlefield, Sultan Bayezid I ordered the execution of thousands of prisoners. The nobles were kept alive for ransom, but the common soldiers, the peasants, and footmen were slaughtered. It was one of the darkest moments in medieval war. The ground around Nicopolis turned red for days, and the smell of death hung over the river. When news of the defeat reached Paris, Venice, and Vienna, Europe was shocked. The crusade had been led by the finest knights and nobles of the continent, and they had been completely crushed. Many families never saw their sons again. Churches held silent masses for the dead. The dream of another great crusade against the Ottomans disappeared forever. For the Ottoman Empire, Nicopolis was a triumph. It showed that their armies were now stronger than any Christian force in Europe. The Balkans lay open before them. Within a few years, most of the region would fall under Ottoman rule. From the Danube to the Aegean, the crescent flag flew above castles that once belonged to Christian kings. But the victory also made Bayezid overconfident. He believed no army could stand against him. Yet far to the east, another conqueror was rising. Timur, the warlord of Central Asia. Their paths would soon cross. But for the moment, after Nicopolis, the world belonged to Bayezid. The Battle of Nicopolis ended the age of Crusades. It changed the balance of power between East and West Europe, had lost its unity in its faith in holy war. And the Ottoman Empire became the new power of the world, a power that would stand for the next 500 years. The Battle of Nicopolis marked more than a defeat. It marked a change in history. For the first time, the armies of Western Europe had faced the full power of the Ottoman Empire and learned that the world was no longer theirs to command. In the years that followed, the crusading ideal faded. No European kingdom dared to send another great expedition into the Balkans. The dream of reclaiming the East was gone. The nobles who once sought glory turned to politics and trade instead. The age of knights was ending, and the age of gunpowder and empire had begun. The Ottomans, strengthened by their victory, expanded relentlessly. They took the cities along the Danube, crossed into Bosnia, Serbia, and Macedonia, and pushed their borders to the heart of Europe, from the Adriatic to the Black Sea. The crescent banner became a symbol of unstoppable power. Nicopolis also changed warfare itself. Heavy knights in shining armor, once thought invincible, had been crushed by mobility, discipline, and strategy. The West began to study Ottoman tactics, learning that victory would no longer belong to courage alone, but to organization, planning, and adaptation. Decades later, when new wars came, commanders remembered what had happened at Nicopolis. They remembered how pride blinded kings and how an empire born from the steppes of Asia reshaped the fate of Europe. Today, Nicopolis stands as a quiet town on the banks of the Danube. But beneath its soil lies the memory of a day when the world turned, when the Middle Ages ended, and a new balance of power began.